there, YouTube! Welcome to my new room! Whoa! I have my own place now and it's very exciting. But this video isn't gonna be an apartment tour or a room tour, not just yet. It's not done yet. This video is actually my spring reads wrap up. So these are all the books that I read in the spring season. I read 2 audiobooks in the spring season and a crap ton of graphic novels. I'm not sure how many like physical novels I actually read in the spring. It was mostly graphic novels. The first audiobook that I read was The Last Days of Magic by Mark Tompkins. I saw this book in Target and the cover was really pretty and I decided to get it on audiobook because I had Audible credit and I did not like this book at all. So essentially it's kind of like this war between magic creatures and humans in Ireland in the, I can't remember what time period it takes place, but it was super boring. I didn't connect to any of the characters and the concept seemed really cool, but it's just like it was lacking so much. None of the characters were particularly interesting. I kept on forgetting who was who because everybody had like 3 names. It was just like not a good book. So this book did this thing where it started out kind of in modern times where this girl gets a call from her grandmother and is like, you need to hide these books that tell this like old story, and then there's people going after her and then it goes into the old story that she's trying to protect, and then at the end it kind of brings that back and a bunch of the old characters, like mystical characters, come back and talk to that girl, and I was like, that's so much more of an interesting story than whatever the heck this book was. I really wish it was kind of those old characters from the past coming to the present and kind of telling the story that way. I felt like it would have been much better that way. But it was what it was and it was terrible. The second audiobook that I read in the spring was The Paper Magician by Charlie N. Holmberg. And this book was kind of interesting. I kind of liked it. Established magic society, which is things that I really love. I love those kind of like world building or just throws you into a magic society. But there was just, the story felt a little flat. But I think I'm gonna read the next 2 books in this series because I really like the world that it's in and the kind of magic system that it's set up. Alright, and the only like physical novel that I read in the spring is The Magician King by Lev Grossman. This is the second book in the Magician's trilogy and it is so good. It actually took me like 6 months to read. I started this in January, but we're not gonna talk about that. So I don't like this book as much as I like the first one, but the thing that keeps on bringing me back to this story is Quentin, because Quentin is the main character of the story, but he's not the hero and he wants to be a hero so much, but it never really happens for him. It's like he gets it and then it gets taken away really quickly, or he learns that he wasn't supposed to do that or something like that. So this one kind of like dragged on a little bit, like a lot happens, and that's the way The Magician's was also. But I still really liked it. You get to see more of Fillory and you get some new characters and some new mythology things. There was a thing, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there was a thing in Julia's story that I really didn't like. It was kind of a trope that like needs to be stopped. So I really didn't like that about Julia's character and her story, but the rest of it was pretty good. So the first one, actually, I think I might have read in the winter, but I forgot to include it in my last wrap-up video, and I really wanted to mention it, and it is Giant Days. And I love this series so much. It's about 3 girls who just started college and they're just kind of trying to figure out life in college. They're trying to figure out relationships, sexuality, feminism, and college in general, and it's just so good. The art is really good, and I just love this. Anyone who is going to college like needs to read Giant Days because it's just really good. There's so many things about this that reminded me of my college days. Next, I read Lumberjanes Volume 2, and this is Friendship to the Max. Lumberjanes is about some girls at a summer camp and all of the weird supernatural type things that go on at their camp and them figuring it out. And I love this series so much because it is just like girl power forever. There's hardly any male characters in this, and that kind of makes me happy because it's just like celebrating females and female friendships and power of friendship and friendship between girls, which I think a lot of the times is kind of not really shown that much. There's a lot of like cattiness between girls and fighting and things like that. So things like Lumberjanes is really good to kind of show that girls don't have to be bitches to each other. Next I read Starfire, Welcome Home. And so I have always kind of liked Starfire as a superhero. I really liked her in Teen Titans, and while the comic book version of Starfire is much different than the Teen Titans version, TV version of Starfire, I still really like her in the comics. And so this was just a really fun read. It was fun to read. I think this might be like Starfire's only or one of her only like solo series. She's just kind of been like this extra character in a lot of stuff. So it's really good to see a story centered around her, and Starfire is really cool. Next I read X-Men Fall of the Mutants Volume 2. So I read the first one. I don't remember when I finished the first volume, but I love X-Men. If you know me, I'm always screaming about X-Men and nobody else likes X-Men. But this one was pretty good. It dragged on a lot, and I think that's a problem because it's just like, it's the older comics, so they're like super wordy. Like there's so many words, and that's kind of something that doesn't really happen. I think newer comics are a little less wordy than these ones, than the older ones. And I liked this story because it kind of centered around Scott Summers, or Cyclops, who is my favorite X-Men. Don't judge. And Jean Grey, and it's an apocalypse storyline. There's a conclusion to a big controversial thing about Scott Summers, so it kind of let me understand that situation a little bit more and form my own opinions on it, and I don't think I agree with most people on that aspect of how Cyclops is a terrible person. The last graphic novel that I read was Paper Girls, and I picked this up on Free Comic Book Day because I always like to buy something at the comic book shop after I get my free comics to support the shop. I was looking for Giant Days #2, but I couldn't find it. I don't think they had it in stock, so I picked up Paper Girls, which looked really cool. Just got like all these like badass girls on the front of it, and this kind of took like a big turn, and I don't think I want to talk about it, like the big turn. It's kind of early in there, but it's kind of about these 4 young girls. I think they're all like between 12 and 15 or something like that, and this crazy adventure that they get thrown into, and it's so cool. And again, it's another like badass ladies graphic novel. I feel like graphic novels are really a place where there's some really interesting, strong, awesome female characters. So highly recommend Paper Girls to anyone, and I don't want to talk about it too much because there's some creepy stuff in here, and it's really cool. That's everything that I read in the spring. And what I'm going to be reading in the summer to start off, I'm going to be reading The Dark Days Club by Allison Goodman. This is I think it's an advanced reader's copy that I got at New York Comic Con that I'm finally picking up, and it seems pretty interesting so far. And of course I'm reading more X-Men. I'm reading this X-Men Age of Apocalypse storyline. This is a very long, convoluted storyline, so it's gonna take me a while to get through it. And I wanted to finish this before the movie came out, but that didn't happen. I realized how much there was in this. So I'm just gonna be working my way through Apocalypse, and I'm really excited for it. Alright, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, what your opinions on them were. And just so you guys know, I think I've mentioned this one time before, but I do have a podcast. It's called The Fake Geek Girls, and we talk about nerd stuff and feminism, and it's great. So I do it with my roommate. We just did a panel at AwesomeCon, which I went to, which you saw the video for before, but we recorded it and put it up as an episode of the podcast. So links to the podcast are in the doobly-doo. So please make sure to check it out because I have a lot of fun doing it, and it's like my dream to have a podcast. Alright, that's all I've got for you guys today. I'm Chrissy Lou. Till next time, matane!